Just a couple of guys, a couple of microphones, and a heck of a lot of know. It's Football on the Know with Jim and Joe.
What they say, it's not the X's and the O's, it's the Jimmies and the Joes.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome once again to another episode of Football on the Know. I am Jim McPhee alongside Mr. Joe DeCapita.
What's going on, Odals? Welcome back for another edition of Football on the Know Show, and a special Sunday Night Football edition as well. We'll be talking about the Giants going up against the Commanders. This is a huge, huge game for both teams. Playoff complications are on the line, and we have to wait and see who can be victorious tonight.
Oh, absolutely, and it's big even, too, having the Cowboys lose tonight, too, the Jacksonville Jaguars, too, because, I mean, that even adds another spot up in the playoffs if these guys can pull out a victory here. First one came up in a tie, Joe. Tough game here. It could have been won by any of those teams there at any point in that game.
If the Cowboys won, then they were locked in the playoffs. They were locked and secured. You know, the Jaguars are a surprising team. You know, we've seen that their defense come alive, kind of like in the middle of the season. We knew that they were a young defense. They were trying to sort things out and everything. Had some injuries they had to sustain, but they came back strong. They look really tough and physical on defense right now. They're tough to contend with. And as long as the offense can kind of put some points up on the scoreboard, they're right in every game.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Cowboys, again, this is one of those times around the playoff time. This is where they start to go cold, Joe. You know, it's what it is. You see, what's funny is with the Cowboys, their hot streak really was when Cooper Rush was there and holding the boat afloat. And they were running the ball with both, backs and doing well and being efficient. And Dak Prescott the last couple of weeks been making a lot of mistakes here, Joe. And that's a big thing you can't have here at playoff time. That's why there's been that question about Dak Prescott over and over again. Whether he's really, an elite quarterback or the guy that they need here and deserving of a contract that he was holding out for, not getting the playoff wins.
He's the best quarterback for the Cowboys, plain and simple. Like he's a guy that they can see winning a Super Bowl in their eyes. Mm-hmm. They don't need the guy to throw the ball all over the football field because that's not their offense. And they've kind of built this team around him to fit, that philosophy. They are very physical. They're a running team that, if they have to, they have great weapons with Dak Prescott being able to throw them the ball. And, there are times, especially as of late, Dak Prescott's kind of struggled here and there, but still not the sole reason why they are losing games or anything like that. So for the Cowboys going forward, they got to get back on track. It's defensively, the defense is there. The defense is making plays. Yeah, you might say, look at this past game against the Jaguars, but but they didn't hold them to, below 20 points or anything. They just kind of let the Jaguars. It goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
And there's momentum swings that happen in every single game. Mm-hmm. So I would kind of push back a little bit on the Dak Prescott blame, and more of this is a team loss. I mean, this is a defense didn't play well at the end of the stretch there, and Dak made a couple mistakes, but all in all, together, you could blame different aspects of the game throughout, offensively, defensively, and even special teams. So for the Cowboys, it's just kind of, listen, you got to kind of forget, you forget your mistakes. Going into the next week, you're going to have to game plan for the next team. You got to turn the page, and you got to move forward and handle business. They're still well in contention of locking up that playoff spot. Mm-hmm. They just got to win. So, it is what it is today. They failed to win today. Now correct those mistakes going forward and prepare for the next team.
Absolutely, and that's right. We are here at Restaurant 605, one of our favorite places to come and watch football because they are Giants fans here. This is the Giants bar. So we're filled with Giants fans here around the bar and hanging out, enjoying some great, roasted, it's like oven baked, spicy
Oven
honey,
roasted, like
barbecue
yeah.
wings. It's like everything all together, like garlic wings, but then also they got the honey barbecue all to them.
Yeah,
they're amazing, Joe. Again, oven baked, so I mean they got that different type of texture to them. Amazing here. $4 Miller Lights drafts too.
Specials,
so come on
yeah.
down here. So for the specials, the food is amazing. We're here hanging out. We are giving away a jersey here at halftime, so definitely put your name in the box here. Make sure you guys subscribe to our YouTube page as well. That'll get you entered, but you do have to be here to win. And Joe, we're talking about Giants and Commanders, and like I was saying before here, these teams fought each other earlier on in the season, and it was back and forth, and it could have been any team in that game that had it. They had the ball possessed throughout the whole overtime, and just when you thought one team was going to take it, the other team made a play. And the Giants, I really felt, had the most momentum in that game, though, and they probably should have took out and got that win, especially at home, because now you got to go into Washington and try to pull out a victory here against Taylor Heineke, which, again, we've said many times that since he's been in and that he should have been a starter at the whole, like since the beginning of the season, has really controlled this offense, and been their guy, putting it on his shoulders to teammates. His teammates love him. And he puts his heart out on the field every single day with every single play. And if it's not him getting the touchdown, he still celebrates his ass off, So he's one of those guys that seems like he just loves the game of football, loves being out there, and just trying to make the most out of his opportunity.
And he's really earned his spot on this team. We saw it as early as last year when he got his opportunity on the football field because of injury to the quarterback position. He got in there. The team kind of just rallied around him. He has this aura around him of like it's easy to like the guy. It's easy to get behind him because he's worked extremely hard to get where he's at. And then to have an opportunity on top of that to become possibly the starter for Washington, the team just kind of gravitated to him. They support him. They back him. And you can see that on the football field. You see them every time a player, like whether it be Terry McLaurin catching a first down, you see, Taylor Heineke running down the field, like, celebrating with them and everything, and vice versa. You see everybody's excited to have him as their quarterback right now. Not so much Carson Wentz anymore. And we kind of saw this coming. We also kind of gave the question earlier before the season even started, but like, why did they even go and trade for Wentz? What was the purpose behind that? Well, they saw veteran leadership in Wentz, and they thought that might help them get over the hump. But when you look at the stats that Carson Wentz had with other teams and how he's bounced around a couple of different teams, it doesn't really spell confidence if you're bringing him in to win football games. So they already had Taylor Heineke in waiting. Hopefully he might get a chance this year, and then they still pull the trade off, which was confusing because both quarterbacks, Heineke already knew the offense. We knew that. Heineke was already comfortable with the team and the players that he has around him. Bringing Wentz, bringing an outsider as a quarterback, all that has to be further developed. He's got to learn the playbook. There's a lot of variables that go along with that. And we saw it fail miserably. Wentz comes down with an injury. Now here Taylor Heineke gets a shot to prove himself. We saw the Giants and Commanders go up against each other a couple weeks ago. And very, very, very good game on both sides.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very physical, very competitive all the way to the end. So much so, it ended up in a tie. Now it's time to break the tie. Now let's see if Taylor Heineke or Daniel Jones can lead their teams to victory.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why it got flexed to this Sunday night game. I think people are more excited to watch something like this other than, I think, was it the Kansas City Texans game?
No, it was going to be the
Raiders-Patriots
game.
Raiders-Patriots game? Well, that ended up turning out into a crazy
Talk about
game, though,
excitement.
too, right?
That was pretty exciting.
Isn't that funny the way it goes? They're trying to flex a game out to try and see that, right? But that last game that we just witnessed here
at
Restaurant 605 was pretty crazy.
Yeah, to be fair, though, Washington versus the Giants, they're like right on the cusp of locking it for the playoffs. There's a few games left. These are big deal games, whereas the Raiders and Patriots game, even though both teams are technically still in the hunt, they're kind of on the outside looking in right now. So I could see why the NFL kind of flexed it out for this game right here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's because it has the playoff implications. Like you were saying before, the playoff implications. This could decide whether one team gets bounced completely, or the other can make it. And if it comes down to even their records or who ends up being, say they have a tie record as the rest of the season plays out, whoever had beaten the other team is going to be able to go. So, I mean, that's a big thing for this game. And, yeah, it's going to be tight. You know, many keys to victory for both sides. But the Giants, you know, I feel that they really need to get Saquon Barkley going in this one. Again, lately he hasn't been doing a whole lot. He's been sitting there, you know, hasn't been able to produce like he did the first couple of weeks here. And he's even came out into the media this past week and said, you know, yeah, I haven't really done a whole lot lately. I need to do more. And this is one of those games where I think they really need him.
Absolutely, and of course they've needed him all year. You've seen how important he is to this offense. The problem is what you're noticing is teams are really pinpointing on Saquon Barkley, trying to take him out of these games because he's really the sole reason that's keeping this offense rolling going forward, and being able to help them move the chains and get into scoring position and even score at that point. You're looking at a Giants team right now that has overachieved immensely. This is a team that we never expected to not only, let alone be in the playoff hunt, but also, I mean, they're surprising a lot of people around the league. I mean, this is a team that we didn't expect to do as well as they are. So for Barkley, and as important as he is as a running back for this team, they don't have receivers. I mean, this is the biggest problem for New York right now. That's why they were looking at OBJ. They were trying to lure him to come play for the Giants. They were trying to look at other receivers, even though they were out there. I mean, there was older vets that were out there. T.Y. Hilton was out there that they could have brought in. There was other guys out there. I mean, guys like even mid-grade receivers to low-grade, like Albert Wilson was out there, like a veteran receiver. Guys that they could have brought in worked out. If they work out, great. If they don't, it doesn't hurt you at all. But at least you could see the Giants trying that way. We all know that they had their fair share of injuries and kind of a laundry list of them, to the point where, like, Sterling Shepard's been missing for quite a few games, you know, and that was kind of their go-to guy when he was healthy.
Yep.
And, you know, where's Kenny Galladay? What is he doing? He's not we can just deem him as a water boy at this point because he's not doing much on the football field. But on the sideline, he seems to be a cheerleader. So going forward for the Giants, I mean, what's it going to hurt you guys? Like, bring in other talent. Even if it doesn't work out, it's okay. Right. But bring in these veteran receivers that have experience, that possibly could learn, maybe even have some experience, you know, that they have.
Or even
knowing
if you
this
think
offense.
about, you know, Cole Beasley just got a job. You know, came out of retirement to play back with the Bills, and he was in Dable's system at one point. You know, you would have thought that maybe when he was out there, he would have been able to do something for you, especially as the wide receivers were dropping like flies. And then, you know, you're seeing and literally dropping balls, you know, all the time. So you're seeing these guys, you know, like the names of Hodgins that they grabbed, you know, out of nowhere. Richie James moving up in the depth chart. And again, the failed the failed, you know, attempt of Kenny Galladay being our number one wide receiver. It's just not added up here to grab a guy that you talk about drops with this team. A guy like Cole Beasley, who has made a lot of spectacular catches and really has good hands, you know, he would have been a nice little fixture, especially in a slot underneath. That would have filled that gap, I think, that you're missing by Sterling Shepard, something like that, you know, somebody underneath who has some moves still here, not like a Kadarius Toney that you might have had before, or a Wan'Dale Robinson that you're hoping you can get. But something, you know what I mean? You can get him at a veteran minimum, you know?
Yeah, the thing with Cole Beasley, though, is the Giants might have very well called Cole Beasley.
They might have.
And
he might have
asked
just
his
said, no, you're
interest
not
in
in contention, so I'm good.
But if you're honestly Cole Beasley and you have the Giants calling you, you're officially retired.
Yeah.
The only way I'm coming off my couch and coming to help a team is if they're definitely going for a Super Bowl
for a ring
at this point. And that's why you saw, like, later on, Bills call him up. Say, hey, OBJ's not coming to Buffalo. He's not going anywhere this season.
He's just chilling.
So would you mind coming back and helping us maybe win one? Yeah, sure. Why not? You know? So, I mean, I'm pretty sure Brian Daboll did in fact, make a phone call to Cole Beasley to kind of survey the interest level that he would have maybe coming to the Giants. But, you know, it's a hard sell when it's not a Super Bowl caliber team just yet. You know what I mean? So for those veterans, I think it's a tough sell. So, like all these other guys that have been ready, willing, and able in free agency, that have been, hoping for the chance to return to the league and maybe show people that they're not washed up just yet.
Yeah.
Those are the guys that they should have been targeting, bringing in for workouts, and possibly signing.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you guys think so far about the wide receiving core of the Giants out there? And should they got another wide receiver out there in free agency that was chilling? But again, maybe somebody again. You saw T.Y. Hilton was retired too as well, and he's not going to come back either unless he feels that the team's in contention, and that's why he goes to the Dallas Cowboys. But again, the caliber of an Odell Beckham Jr. compared to some of these guys that were out in retirement is I think a bigger upside than what you might get out of these guys. So
the only problem with
OBJ
is that he's not ready.
Yeah,
he's not going to be ready for 4 more weeks to even play. And then on top of that, he still has to learn on offense.
Yeah.
So if he's not signed, you're not going to give him the playbook to learn.
Yeah.
And when he is signed, he's still got to go through a little bit of, time, 2 to 3 weeks to probably start to get down the offense. So by that time, you could be out of the playoffs.
Yeah.
So like for a team, for any of the teams that were pursuing him, Buffalo, New York, L.A. was kind of an outsider, but they were still trying. It's just not enough time, and it's too quickly when you need his help now. And we've already heard OBJ say himself, like, why should I come back for the regular season? I'll consider a playoff run, but why should I come back now? So you've already seen how OBJ is in the regular season, how it's about himself. Really, he's looking out just for himself, not really wanting to jump in on a team right now. And he's just not ready. So let's wait and see what happens maybe in the offseason, because there's going to be a lot more suitors now, because as soon as the offseason comes, now you got everybody's attention. Now everybody could possibly sign him, whoever has the money to do it or the trust anyway.
Right, absolutely. And you're talking about signings and things like that. And let's think about the thing that the Giants had done. They had not picked up the 5th-year option of Daniel Jones and stuff. So, but you'd see the way this season is playing out. Now there's playoffs involved. When you looked at this team before, you were looking at it as maybe they're a team that's just building right now. Let's see what it has. I mean, first-year GM, first-year coach. So let's see what we have with the guys that we have here in the house. What's going on? And so let's see what we can do out of this. And luckily, it's been, to a surprise, a lot bigger and better than what we were kind of anticipating here.
Absolutely.
So for them to now have playoffs chances, it's big. So what does that mean for Daniel Jones? Does that mean he, again, what kind of deal would you give a Daniel Jones? I've heard maybe a 2-year deal. Sit there and see what you got for 2 years, and then see where he ranks again. If multiple years on top of each other that he performs well, continue to make the playoffs. Or if you see another year after this, it's going to be, not a lucrative deal either, something friendly.
No.
Which I think he might negotiate with the Giants. I think he feels like he wants to be a Giant here. And, what do you think on Daniel Jones? Say they make the playoffs, depending on how far even they go, but let's just say they make it to playoffs, go out in the wild card or whatever.
I mean, for Daniel Jones' situation, he's been there for several years. I know not with the same coaching staff. I get that.
And that's difficult,
but
too.
Here's the thing, is Brian Daboll has catered this offense with what he had on the roster.
Yeah.
He knew Daniel Jones' limitations. He knows his strengths and weaknesses. So this offense, and if you put any other capable quarterback in this offense, they kill it. Daniel Jones is not killing it because they're not trying to put all the pressure on his shoulders, because they know what he is at this point. They've seen him in practice. They've seen him during games now. They have enough to go off of at this point as a new coaching staff to know whether he's their guy or not their guy. So as far as the declining of the 5th-year option, I feel the same way for anybody that had their 5th-year option declined. It doesn't necessarily mean a team is ready to move on from you. It just means that they don't want to pay you the kind of money that they're going to have to be locked into that year. So guys like Josh Jacobs, and we know he got his 5th-year option declined, and there's several others. But it's only because teams want to see, can you stay healthy? Can you keep producing for us? They want to see in that final year, can they still do it for our team the way we want them to, and successfully. If they can, then we'll look to re-signing him in the offseason. No harm, no foul. But they just want to see more production. And for Daniel Jones and the Giants, I feel like they know who he is right now.
Yeah.
Even though they've only had one season with him, I feel like they know who he is. And because the offense had to be kind of, I don't want to say dummied down because that's not the right term, but it's kind of been scaled down for Daniel Jones to be able to do what he does well.
Yeah.
He does a great job of utilizing his legs at the right time. He does a good job of delivering the pass short to intermediate. He does have a cannon for an arm.
Yeah.
But the problem is when you're limited with your offensive line being able to kind of be, not as solidified as you would like to be and not pass protect well, it kind of limits what you are capable of doing. So for Daniel Jones and the coaching staff going forward, I don't think they're all in on him yet. There's a possibility he returns, but also it could be to the point where this offense that we've kind of created to help the team that we have, the players that we have at our disposal. Granted, you do have to remember too, it's not a full offense. Like you literally have Daniel Jones, a offensive line that's still trying to get better, and Saquon Barkley, and that's pretty much it. So it would have been nice to see a Kenny Galladay kind of rise up from the ashes and return to his Pro Bowl level that he was in Detroit. Would be nice to see him out there like that. It would be nice to see Sterling Shepard still out there to really kind of get a full spectrum of what Daniel Jones is capable of with receivers. But we don't have that luxury this year. So it's kind of like a projection that the coaching staff has to do, knowing what Daniel Jones does well and not well right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. We have a comment here from one of our know-it-alls.
Hashtag know-it-all.
Out there. It's Cody Raptors in the house for us tonight.
What's going on, Cody?
All right. What does Cody have to say? At this point in the season, I'm more looking forward to the wide receivers we could get in the next free agency or the draft. I'm so happy with what I've seen so far from the Giants this season, but I'd be shocked if we end up in the playoffs at this point with all the injuries that we have on both sides of the ball. And that's the thing that he battled the whole season, injuries, injury bug. I think going into after coming out of preseason, I think they were probably the most injured team in the NFL at this point. And then it just kept getting worse from there. Injuries at the offensive line, in and out. Shep goes down again for a season-ending injury again.
Wan'Dale Robinson, who a promising rookie.
Rookie. You can't see much of him because of it. And Kadarius Toney was always injured too, and that's why I think they traded him away.
He wasn't injured.
Well, I know at that point, but a lot of times he was, or even they were just doing disciplinary, and he didn't need any of that. But not having starters in there, but that's what's funny with some of the starters out, with the injuries, they were still pulling out victories. But what it was, I think, is that they had key starters in still, and Xavier McKinney, stuff like that, big playmakers. Fabian Moreau has been amazing for the Giants, too, as well, and locking it down at the corners situation. And Adoree Jackson, I think, has even gotten better this season as opposed to last season here. So they've been able to gel together, and that's what I think this team, what's been good about them is they kind of know that the starters haven't been in and out, and there's a lot of those second, third, fourth string guys in there, and they still have that grit and they want to win all the time. They grind. So I think that has kind of brought them together as a brotherhood and pulled out some of these victories. But like Cody said, it's you came into the season. Let's see what happens out of this regime. They've been able to manage to pull out victories with a lot of nobodies, and playoffs come along. Let's see if they make the playoffs. Some people, I'm sure, the way the fans are, like, no, you're hurting our draft capital possibly to maybe get that quarterback. No, we shouldn't make the playoffs, but things change, and let's see what happens with this.
The whole fans kind of betting or hoping against their own team to get a higher draft pick is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, if you want to see progress. If you're a fan, if you're a true football fan, you want to see progress from your team. Yeah. Whether no matter if they've been bad for the last 5 to 10 years, or they're trying to make a comeback, at a dismal last season. Yeah. Like, you want to see progress. You want to see your team win. I just don't understand the whole kind of like, we're seventh We're 7th right now in the
Yeah,
first
yeah,
round.
yeah,
If
yeah.
we lose the last 3 games, we're going to be right up there in the top 5. You shouldn't be rooting against your team. You
That
should be
always bothers
looking
me,
for
especially
progress.
even the conversation where what would you rather have, a blowout loss or a close loss? Like, why have a conversation like that? But people
Yeah.
do. They're like,
Yeah, I
oh,
know.
what will affect you
I
more?
know.
What more upset would you be? I don't
That's
want
right.
any of that. I
That's
mean,
right.
even though I'm a Giants fan and I've
Yeah.
dealt with losses before, and
Yeah.
my limitation to that is I bet against them because, again, I'm not confident with some of the things that they do.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they do pull out that victory, I'm always wishing
great.
for them to win. I'm
It's
never
great,
like,
yeah.
oh, I picked them to lose, so I want them to lose. You know what I mean? It never happens, and I never want them to, choke or just tank for
Yeah.
a certain guy.
Right.
I
Going
never
back to
understood that
Cody's
mentality.
comment,
Yeah.
this is a team that nobody expected to be where they're at right
Yeah.
now, or to have a chance to make the playoffs. This is a team that, honestly, we saw kind of maybe fighting for last place in this division and not even be considered
Yeah.
a playoff contender. So for the Giants to go through the immense amount of injuries that they have and to still be in the hunt.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, like, for the NFC conference, it's kind of an open door for everybody at this point.
Yep.
We've seen the NFC South have a very dismal season. There's no clear-cut winner there to win the division. And then throughout the rest of the conference, a lot of teams, despite your division leading teams, everybody's kind of like close to 500, maybe a game or two above 500, but nobody is like blowing out the NFC conference and saying, oh, well, these 7 teams are definitely going and not the rest. You know what I mean? So the NFC conference is still close in that aspect. So that's what gives teams like the Giants, who have gone through a lot of, adversity to this point and missing players and not having their full roster available to them week to week. This kind of gives them hope because they are a very gritty team. They are a physical team. They stay in games. They play to the last whistle. Like, they are the epitome of why we watch football. It's any given Sunday. And because of that phrase that kind of we throw around, this is true for the Giants. Look at what the Giants are right now. If you're an NFL fan or even an analyst, looking in on this game, you'd be like, oh, well, the Giants kind of don't really stand much of a chance. I mean, yeah, they've had a good few games and kind of like a good run, but now we kind of, like, look at what they have. They don't really have any kind of threat receiver. They don't have a stellar offensive line. It's adequate, but it's not stellar.
Yeah.
They have Barkley, but Daniel Jones, he makes some bonehead plays, and then sometimes he makes good ones. We don't know what he have with him.
Right.
And then defensively they're solid. But they can be solid, but they can't hold, and that's kind of the reason what helps them stay in games.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
then have
That's
a
been able
chance
to
to
keep
win
them in
games.
games nonstop,
Is their
yeah.
defense kind of, playing up to par up against these other offenses and kind of holding them down
Right.
in terms of point total. So for the Giants, this is not only an incredibly important game. This is a game that the Giants want to be in.
Yeah.
They want to go up against Washington again because the Giants players, I know they feel like they let one go couple weeks ago. They didn't finish the game and get that W.
Yeah, and when you look at this game altogether, from the last one too, the Giants really had a good hard push to pull out that victory with nobody. Let's look at it this way. I've heard this even as a conversation too as well. And you guys let us know out there too in the comments. What do you think about this? Do you think, say you swap quarterbacks, you put Daniel Jones on the Commanders and then Taylor Heineke on the Giants, who comes out with the victory? Is it a tie still? Or does somebody get an advantage on that one? Do you think Taylor Heineke can still lead the Giants with this same receiver crew to a victory, or does Daniel Jones with Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuels and some of these other guys, these better wide receivers than what the Giants have at this point right now, Will they pull out the victory there? You know, I mean, that's an interesting take on that. And
Yeah.
maybe how you gauge both of these quarterbacks and what you might think of a Daniel Jones, because Daniel Jones, I think at this point, would love to have a Terry McLaurin, you know, in his pocket here to dish to, you know, to get them through this. But
I think Daniel Jones would also like that offensive line.
Oh yeah, absolutely
Which is
too.
like a more veteran, solid offensive
Yeah,
line.
definitely. But you remember you talked about the defense here too, and that's the difference. Yes, you blitz a lot too, but when you did have those corners injured, Fabian Moreau and Dory Jackson were injured at the same time. Right. And so when you get pressure, but then you can't, you know, and you're out there on that blitz, and you don't get to the quarterback quick enough, those corners are vulnerable. And that's when some of those big plays would happen and not pull out the victory. But they faced some tough teams out there, Detroit Lions and stuff, and you know, who right now are really driving hard, and they pull out another victory today. So they're making a run, surprising, out of this whole thing. And maybe making a playoff push themselves of things, but the Commanders, I think when you take a look at them, they weren't expected to do a whole lot, I think, this season either. If anybody wanted to be realistic, even especially with Carson Wentz in there, you're not sure what the defense might have looked like because, again, they had some injuries of their own last year, didn't start off very well last year, then started kind of coming to their own again, but this season, Chase Young out again on injury, starting to get better again, though, as they move on. But that offense, you weren't sure, because even you see, is Carson Wentz the guy to get him forward? You know, you never got to see the Ryan Fitzpatrick thing, you know, go, because he got injured so fast, too. So
before the season.
Yeah. So you never got to see this offense get going, and you weren't sure what they were going to do. Ron Rivera's job was probably at, you know, in trouble too before this season. So now that they're actually competing, maybe he even
Might
had
save
to.
him.
Yeah, because even the funny thing is, I just don't think he's telling the media or anybody else the truth when that whole thing happened with the Carson Wentz and all that. So he's like, "Oh, I wanted Carson. He's my guy. That's the reason why I wanted to get him." And he started swearing at the media and everything, this and that. But maybe he shouldn't have said something like that, because I think it was a clear choice that they should have never went and got him.
Right.
And now Taylor Heineke has done better for this, and in turn it has saved probably Ron Rivera's job after this point. You
Yeah,
know what I'm
something
saying?
tells me that I'm not 100% sure Ron Rivera wanted Wentz. I think it was
I don't
a
think
front
so
office
either.
meeting, and they're saying, listen, you know, we do realize we have Taylor Heineke as an insurance policy. We're thinking about going to get Carson Wentz. You know, what do you think about that coming onto your team? And I don't even know if Ron Rivera was so welcoming about it, to be honest. I think he saw what they had in Taylor Heineke the season prior. They saw how the team kind of rallied around him. They saw that he had chemistry and that he knew the offense really well, and they could sustain drives and put points on the board. I think Ron Rivera saw that last season when he had an opportunity and was like, you know what? No, I don't think that's the right idea. I think we should stick with Taylor. I think we should maybe look in the draft to draft a guy and try to groom him under Taylor Heineke. And then maybe, you know, that could be the future. And there might have been, you know, a little bit of friction on that whole situation. We don't know, but we're just kind of speculating. But for Ron Rivera, and then who knows, maybe he was forced to even start him.
Yeah.
Maybe he didn't even want to start him either. We don't know the answers to these questions, but it's a fun conversation to have, because now if you're Ron Rivera, you could be sitting there and going, "Told you so." Look at what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Look at what Taylor Heineke is doing. Because as soon as Wentz went down with an injury, it was kind of a blessing in disguise for Washington. Now here comes Taylor. Now the teammates are rallying around him. Now they're being able to sustain drives, put up points, and that's helping the defense. A defense that was probably was it 3 years ago is when they were seen as a top 10 defense,
yeah.
a very ferocious, come after you, aggressive style type of defense, and you know, we haven't seen that in quite some time. And yes, they have the injury with Chase Young, still kind of hobbled by it, still not being able to get on the football field, but they're able to hold it down. They've gotten better late last season. It was actually even without Chase Young at the time. And now you fast forward to this year, and their defense is actually pretty good. It's not great stat-wise, but they do make plays here and there, and the offense and the defense are working hand in hand to win games.
Yeah, absolutely. So Cody here, he's answering our question that we had before, but who would he rather take, and who could probably get it done better? He says Daniel Jones here. He goes, I love Heineke, but without Scary Terry and other weapons, I just don't think many quarterbacks in the NFL would be able to consistently make plays. That's why it's so difficult to judge Jones based on this season. And he's been judged a few different seasons, but you've seen so many other quarterbacks, if he keeps changing, offensive schemes and things like that, and head coaches, it doesn't help them. They don't mature very well, and they don't develop very well either. So despite all that, and then losing, Daniel Jones is really, if he didn't have the personality that he has, I think he would have been run out of here a lot quicker. I mean, look at Zach Wilson for the Jets. I think New York fans just hate this guy, and a lot of other fans around the NFL, I think, just think he's a douchebag. And when you're not winning either, too, and when you don't own it and you don't act with that type of stand-up kind of thing to put the responsibility on, take the blame for your mistakes, holding up the defense, having them do things for you, that marks bad for you on this. And that's why I think you've had so many people behind like a Mike White out there too. And maybe the same type of deal with Carson Wentz, and that's why that is the way it is too. So to have a guy like Daniel Jones out there, and I think I agree with Cody here too, if you gave him the weapons that the Commanders have, I think he has a better shot of winning in this game. But
this is the ultimate team sport. And I know a lot of blame goes to the quarterbacks because they're seen as the captains, the leaders of the team.
Yeah, absolutely.
But here's the deal. Just like you're saying, you're doing the quarterback swap.
Yeah.
You put Taylor Heineke on the Giants, he's not going to be very successful at all.
Yeah.
Look at what the Giants have versus what Washington has. It's not even a question or a debate.
Yeah.
You could put any average quarterback on Washington, and they are going to win games. They are going to help that offense. So for Daniel Jones and a lot of the naysayers about Daniel Jones to this point, it's kind of a toss-up, to be honest with you. Like, there are attributes that you see in Daniel Jones sometimes, and you're like, man, he could be something. But then a lot of the times, he does make poor decisions with the football, or turns the ball over when he really shouldn't, or try to force something that's not there. So that's a lot of negatives that kind of follow Daniel Jones around, to the point where that's where you see a lot of people that are against him and don't want him there for the Giants. That's kind of like where their stance is, and saying they want to move on, they want to try to bring in someone else new. But it's a big, big decision. This is not easy. Like, even if he's not your guy for the future, you have to have an answer before you get rid of him, or before you move on from him. Because if you don't, you could be in a lot more serious trouble in the long haul.
Absolutely. It's getting a little chilly over here in the corner, Joe. I think it's so many people coming in and out of here, opening the door. It's making a breeze over here, but it's cool. If you guys haven't, come down to 605 New Scotland Avenue, right?
That's right.
605 New Scotland Avenue, restaurant 605. It's a Giants football bar, and great food, worldly food. So they have everything from every corner of the world here to eat, and it's all amazing. Drink specials, Miller Lite specials, $4 drafts. The wings, you got to have the wings especially. The Dion Lewis burger, too, is one of those things you got to try and tackle tonight, too. And I don't know if you can finish it out there. I've seen this thing, and it is massive. But come on down. My sister's down here, too, so shout out to her out there. She's out there. So more know-it-alls are here, so definitely come down here, check it out, watch the game with us. We are giving away a jersey at halftime, so come down with us. Joe, here we go. Cody's got a comment here before I get into the next part. He goes, I think the Giants if the Giants were to let Daniel Jones go, we could see him strive on another team similar to what happens with Ryan Tannehill with the Titans. I mean, and then don't you hate that as a team too? Because you're like, yeah, we're not sure on this guy. We'll just cut him loose, or not, let him go. Or there's a new regime in there, so they weren't really their guy.
Right.
And that happened with Ryan Tannehill. People thought he was just done at this point. Didn't really turn out to a whole lot. He could manage a game and still get some victories. But I think, again, this comes into that question, or that thing that teams have. They're always striving for that franchise, Hall of Fame quarterback. And Tannehill, I think, really was their guy. If they got some more pieces around him, I think Miami could have been good for a while. But now it's the Titans, and look what they've done. Get that solid running back here. They still are now that they don't have A.J. Brown, they've gotten a little weaker in there at wide receiver. And now you see it kind of shows that's what they kind of need here to help out that defense and get the offense going. So it's not all on them.
Right, and something else, too, about Daniel Jones that's very underrated, and that I feel like nobody really talks about is his toughness.
Yeah.
His toughness as a quarterback and how healthy he's been able to sustain his body for this long. I mean, he's been pummeled in games. Even when he's running the football, he'll take on some tacklers and pops right back up. Like it's almost like he's like one of these transformers out there. Like he can run, he can throw the ball, he can do a good job. It's just putting it all together. You know what I mean? And that's kind of something that the new coaching staff has to figure out. Like, is he our guy? I think he can be. I think he could be their guy for the future. It depends on where they want to go with this offense, because after they manage to gain better talent at the receiver positions, after they'll be able to upgrade the offensive line a little bit more.
Yeah.
If they want to keep Daniel Jones, it's very attainable. Keep him there and then kind of build around him to see really what you truly can have in Daniel Jones. Because I understand like the stigma about him and oh, well, he does make mistakes. Oh, well, he does this. And you have to give the guy a fair shot, though. Like, honestly, since he's been drafted by the Giants, I know Dave Gettleman, the former GM, traded up to get him, and a lot of people were against it. And, everyone's like, oh, but Lamar Jackson was there. You didn't have to trade up. You could have got him.
Yeah.
But, again, Lamar Jackson's a special case.
Yeah.
People don't realize this. His success is because of the offensive coordinator's creativity, is why he became so good in the NFL. Not necessarily just a straight-up quarterback.
Right.
So for Daniel Jones, he has the running ability. He has the arm. He has some of the attributes that you need in a quarterback. It's just a matter of putting everything together and seeing what you have after that point.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just looking at the TV here. We can see it in the reflection here. And they just did all the picks here on the broadcast. And one person picked the Giants. Everybody else has got Washington, Joe, to win this one.
Probably because they're home.
It could be.
I feel like that sways a lot of people.
All right, so let's get down to it. We're almost wrapping up here before game time. We got about roughly 10, 15 minutes. Joe, what are the keys for victory for the Washington Commanders on this one to pull out a victory against the Giants here?
For the Commanders, it's real simple. It's the offense.
Score more points, right?
No, honestly, it's the offense and how well they can execute their plays.
Yeah.
Sustain drives. That's really what the Washington has to do on their side. For the Giants, I'm going to say the offense. Listen, we all know that both defenses are good. We both know that they're going to come playing and come with it. But really, it's going to be the offenses that determine this football game, because the Giants and their lack of a true starting roster, they've had to overcome all year. They've had to come up with different plays for Daniel Jones to be able to utilize his legs and get Saquon Barkley more involved. I would like to see from the Giants to get Barkley the ball in open space. Get him the ball, a 5-yard, a toss, something like that to kind of, and also kind of mix in more plays for the tight ends, more plays for everybody, short to intermediate,
right,
and kind of get this defense to think more than react. That's going to be the big deal for the Giants. For offensively, for the Commanders, like I said before, they just got to be able to kind of keep the chains moving and keep it going. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when you look at it for me too, it's the Commanders. Again, they got to beat the blitz on this one again, because Adoree Jackson not playing again, so you're probably going to see Fabian Moreau here on Terry McLaurin. So see some of these other wide receivers get some nice underneath. You saw what happened with the Commanders while they were able actually to tie that game. I think last game, the crossing routes, getting those crossing routes, and then underneath to the halfbacks, which they've been able to use very well this season too. That's key to them. Get those crossing routes going, those wide receivers, that offense going, and beat the blitz on this one, because the secondary is vulnerable. Tate Crowder at linebackers not playing again tonight too. So again, attack that middle with those slant and slot receivers.
And that's tough too for the defense for the Giants too, because they don't have all their starting corners. So they're more apt to play more zone and kind of leave those gaps on the football field. And Taylor Heineke and the Washington Commanders are going to have to try to find those gaps and deliver the football right away.
Yeah, absolutely. And then for the New York Giants on the other end, again, get the running game going again. Saquon Barkley, this is your bread and butter. If he doesn't get it going and get some yards, get 100 yards, this is where this team is vulnerable, because you see what offensive non-weapons they have at wide receiver. You can't do it through the air. They end up doing the only thing I hate, too, about this Giants offense sometimes is when they do get down, they think they got to get big chunk yards all the time to try and get back into it, so they keep throwing, just doing deep routes. We've seen it in a 2-minute, in that same game against the Commanders last time, when they had the ball with just about 2 minutes left to go. You're looking to see a 2-minute drill, and they aired it out like 3 times in a row. Yes, maybe the receiver might have beaten when it was, I think it was, whatchamacallit there, there's crappy wide receiver that keeps dropping this year. I can't believe I can't remember his name right now, but they had some wide open opportunities, but he just did not come up with the catch. Darius Slayton, there you go, just came to me. Darius Slayton right there for a catch that he probably should have had, but then spiked it down and then dropped it, but went back to the deep ball again. Dink and dunk, get it going, move it along, but they need to establish the run, and they need to impose their will with this offensive line now, who seems to be healthy again. Ground and pound, tire out the defense. Get them worn out, because that's got to be their bread and butter too, is their defense.
That's the tough part, though,
so
because
get that going.
The Commanders are going to do their best to shut
down the run.
So if they do, you have to come up with a different answer to beat Washington's defense.
And I like, again, what they do with Daniel Jones. Mix it up. Get him outside on the bootleg. Go a bunch of times one way, then bootleg it out the other way. Get creative, because that's the only thing you're going to be able to do to pull out a victory here. But get that running game going and keep that offense off the field. Not that you're afraid of a Taylor Heineke, but getting these other, you see what wide receivers they have on the other end. Keep them off, keep the defense tired, and you'll be able to get in this game again and not squander away a victory, which I feel that they did last time.
I mean, it's easy to say. For us to come up here and say you need to keep running the ball.
Right. Yeah, that's your keys you need to do. But are they going to be able to? That's why they play, right? Is
eventually they're going to have to. They already have dealt with that. Teams shutting that run game down for the Giants.
Yeah.
And they have to figure out a way, how can they beat teams without Barkley all the time? Because it's great. You need to stay balanced. That's what really needs to happen. Not so run heavy anymore, because now teams are getting used to playing, just worrying about Saquon Barkley. Get them thinking about how they got to play defense against other players.
Yep.
Not just Barkley, just like I mentioned, maybe sprinkling Daniel Jones on an option and have him go take off, or get the tight ends involved, kind of keep them on their heels. So if the Giants can do that, I think they can come away with the win here.
Yeah, absolutely. So here it is. It's almost game time, Joe. Who do you got in this one here with the Giants and the Commanders? I know we saved our picks for this last night here.
We did.
Before you get to it again, maybe I'll just bring up the fact that, there is a curse upon this place. I think from the last couple times we've come here, one time I did pick the Giants to win. They lost against the Cowboys. That was a tough one here, so they lost here. And close. Then I picked against them still, so I ended up getting the win on that one. But they tied, I think it was last time. I think we were here too again, I think, for the Commanders. We were here for the Commanders game? I want to say we were. Or maybe not.
Think so.
Yeah, I can't remember what the other game was, but they didn't come out with a victory in that one either. So we're trying to change the ways here, and hopefully they come out with a victory on this one. But who do you got here, Joe?
So for me, because I just like what Washington has roster-wise. I know this is always a close game. This is always going to go right down to the whistle. We saw it 2 weeks ago. Because it's a divisional rivalry, kind of, you know what I mean? And these teams both know each other so well. But I'm going to have to lean on the home team. I'm going to go with Washington at home. I mean, I can't buy into the Giants' offense right now. It's iffy with Saquon Barkley. Whether he has a good game or not depends big time on how well they play offensively.
Right.
So that I can't push all my chips to the center table I have all confidence in the world, you know what I mean? Because of that limitation. So for me, I'm going to go with Washington because they're a little bit more versatile on offense. They're able to run the ball. They can throw the ball to the vast number of weapons that they have. So I'm going Commanders.
Yeah, I hear you there, and I think I'm going to go with the Commanders too as well.
Okay.
Just because that's my thing too. I bet against them, and hopefully I'm happy then if the Giants do pull out a victory. But same reasons. You look at the roster on both sides. You know, it just they don't have enough weapons, and
Right.
when that you know that they have to run the ball, like you said, teams already know that. And the difference, I think, from the first half to the second half, people got an opportunity to see what was going on. They're like, whoa, all right, we see who your receivers are. We're not afraid of them.
Right.
We got to stop Saquon. We got to stop the run here. And then with the injuries on top of it that they've had, and now the key injuries, especially on defense, like I said, not having Adoree Jackson, I think, is very bad.
And
That
the
is
crazy
big.
thing is,
It's not
Adoree
good for them.
Jackson was a free agent for quite some time, and nobody picked him up. You know what I mean? And teams needed corners. So for the Giants to be able to get him off the free agent heap, and for him to play as well he has for them, is amazing.
Yeah, at first it was a little sketchy last year when he joined, but then he started to get better. And now this season, I think he's been
Knows
a
the
really
all-
good
knows the
veteran.
defense.
So
Yeah.
it's been a lot better for them. But yeah, I'm hoping they can come out with a victory on this one, Joe. But we'll see. We'll see. That's why they play the
will
games.
see.
So we're gonna have
and
a lot
we're
of
gonna
fun
be
here,
watching it right from here, Restaurant 605 at 605 New Scotland Avenue in Albany. If you're not doing anything, if you're kind of bored, if you want some people to watch some football,
Eat some good food.
We're here. This is great food. It's global food, mind you.
Yeah, it is.
They have a lot of different dishes that are very unique. Come down here, check them out. So far, everything that we've had
Yeah.
since we've
We've
been
tried to
coming
try the
here
menu,
has
yeah.
been amazing. Like nothing disappointing at all whatsoever.
Yep.
So come on down, enjoy some football, some food, some drinks. We'll be here all night.
Yeah, absolutely. If you haven't yet, Joe, how did they win, and what else should you do to spread the love to all the rest of the know-it-alls out there?
Oh, it's real simple. I mean, all we ask from you guys to help us grow this football community of ours, spread the love from all the know-it-alls. Head over to YouTube, search us up Football on the Know Show. Hit that subscribe button. Also hit the notification bell to let you guys know when we go live. And as well, you can also follow us, become a member, become a know-it-all on Facebook, and as well on Twitter
Hashtag know-it-all.
at FB_know. Thank you guys. Thanks to our sponsors.
Yeah,
They've been truly amazing this
absolutely.
year.
They're the reason we can do this. So shout out to Colorize, Paul Perry Kitchens right there,
Mohawk Honda.
Honda as well. So thank you so much, and we'll see you guys next time. Enjoy the game.
Join us next week from 8 till 10 Wednesday nights for more Football on the Know with Jim and Joe.